I'm Jonathan April, and I lead the College Greenlight team. My awesome colleague Abdiel has been leading most of our recent webinars, and I'm back for today's event featuring one of our favorite organizations, Matriculate. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that we are in an unprecedented time in education, seemingly getting not so great news every day. But it's times like this where it's so meaningful for us to be part of a community that is passionate about improving outcomes for students. Making partnerships and being a part of a community is more important than ever. And really connected to that spirit, we are pleased to share an organization that we think can be an important partner for you all as you support your students and look to add capacity to your work. I'm going to pass to my colleague, Karen, who will be joined by a team of folks who will share more about Matriculate and their valuable work. Karen.
Thank you, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy that you're here. While you share in the chat where you're zooming in from, can you also please share in the chat what is currently your biggest challenge in supporting students with the college application process? We ask this because it's something to keep top of mind as we go through this presentation, and hopefully, talk about how we can address some of those challenges. So it is, again, wonderful to see so many of you from all across the country. I hope everyone is enjoying the extra daylight. I know I am, and your spring break if you are on it. I am Karen Du, and I will be leading our session. I was a public school teacher in New York City for 8 years, and even as a teacher, one of my biggest challenges was not being able to give my students the individualized attention that they each deserved. And I am with Matriculate today. I am doing broader national college access work now. And here at Matriculate, I lead building relationships with the families of our students, with counselors like you, so that we can work with thousands of students who most need additional college access support each year. I am going to now share my screen and get right into it. So we are a national nonprofit that provides free virtual one-to-one college advising to eligible high school students across the country. High schoolers, your high schoolers, they get paired with a trained undergraduate student who walks them through each step of the college application process. Our mission is that every high schooler goes to a school that is the best fit for them financially, academically, and socially. And, that's all of our dreams, right? Thank you for those who are sharing their challenges as a counselor in the chat. Today, we will discuss how Matriculate is helping to address these challenges and support your students. First, we'll give the background information about Matriculate, the 101. Then we'll hear from a former high school student in our program. We'll hear from a university student currently advising high school students. We'll hear from a public school counselor. And finally, one of our senior directors here at Matriculate who collaborates with other community organizations. There will be a Q&A at the very end. So please, please, please share your thoughts, your comments, your questions at any point throughout this presentation in the chat or the Q&A box. And finally, we will end with a what's next, a call to action at the very end. So why does Matriculate do what we do? Recent research shows that 53% of your low-income, high-achieving students don't apply to a single school that matches their qualifications. And so what that means is that every year, 35,000 of these students don't enroll in a best fit school despite being qualified to do so. That's a lot of students. And so Matriculate was founded to get more of these students in the door, through the door, out the door, through near-peer advising, and show them that these schools are accessible to them, again, financially, academically, and socially. Let's talk about this near-peer advising piece. So our program model uses the power of near-peer mentorship to guide your students to thrive in a best fit school and graduate within 4 to 6 years. Our near-peer advisors, who we call advising fellows, they are college students who are passionate about education and about educational equity. They come from similar backgrounds as our high school students. So Felix and Jasmine with us today, who we will hear from later. They are alum of our program who are now themselves advising fellows, and they're eager to hold the metaphorical door open for their peers coming behind them. Our high school students, we call them advising high school fellows. They are students who are doing well at school and are most likely to undermatch. Once admitted into our program, they're paired with an advising fellow and we'll meet with them at least once a week, one-to-one via FaceTime or Zoom, so virtually, to cover key college application and financial aid steps. Beyond the tactical topics, they also build a close relationship and are able to talk very candidly about what it's like to transition to college, what it's like to attend college as a first generation student, or even what's happening with their favorite musician. So these relationships are special. And since we have been founded in 2014, we've worked with over 20,500 students and are growing. So we work with a lot of students and we want to make sure that what we are doing, that near-peer mentorship works. So since class of 2018, we've worked with a lead researcher, Ben Castleman, and his team at the University of Virginia to study the impact of our program. And fortunately, the research has shown that Matriculate has a statistically significant impact on both students' enrollment and persistence at top colleges. Okay. Because our program is virtual, we prioritize providing advising to students who may not easily have another college access program in their community, in their backyard. So in the class of 2026, we will be working with 3,000 students from all 50 states and US territories, and we especially focus on first-gen students, underrepresented students of color, and rural ex-urban students. A note that our application for class of 2026 is currently open, and I'll talk a little more about that. So to target this undermatching issue, these are our eligibility requirements for your high school students. They must attend high school in the US, though there is no citizenship requirement. Students of any status are very welcome. They have to be on track to graduate in the class of 2026. They must have a family income of less than $90,000, a GPA of 3.5 out of 4.0 on a 4.0 scale or the equivalent. And finally, we ask for their standardized test score. We look at the ACT, SAT, but also the pre-ACT, the PSAT. We are looking for a standardized test score in the 90th percentile. If your student does not have that test score, or they don't plan on testing, or they have not taken a test yet, we just ask them to self-report their school courses. So we are looking for 3 out of 5 of their core subjects like math, social studies, science, language, and English. 3 out of 5 of these core subjects to be at the highest level that your school offers, whether that be honors, AP, or IB. If your student's GPA increases or improves over the year, or they have a new eligible test score to submit, they can just email us here at Matriculate with the updated transcript or updated test score. They don't have to apply again. So we really want to be flexible and accommodating for our students or for your students. Here's what the application process and cycle looks like. Your high school juniors will apply online. It takes a maximum of 15 minutes. Students self-report their basic background information, GPA, test scores. There are no essays, no letters of recommendation, or tax documents required. Once that application is submitted, the Matriculate team reviews them on a rolling basis. And finally, accepted students become our high school fellows. They get matched with an advising fellow. Something cool that we do is we try our best to make a match based on shared interests, based on shared home state, based on the intended major, so that there is common ground when that relationship begins. Our class of 26 application, like I said, is open. It will close once our 3,000 seats are filled or in August of this year, late summer, mid to late summer, whichever comes first. After this presentation, we'll share out these slides and our links, and you can also find everything on our website. Okay. I always say the gold cornerstone of our program is this relationship building between students and their advisors. So let's talk about these advisors. Who are they? How are these advising fellows equipped to work with your students? So our advising fellows are current college students across the country. Many of them attend universities shown on the screen with supported Matriculate cohorts and fellowships. Advisors apply, they interview, they pass a background check, and they complete 15 hours of training before they're even ready to be matched. And once they get matched, advisors have monthly professional development around different milestones and topics, such as financial aid, essays, that total more than 40 hours. And of course, these advisors are closely supervised by Matriculate staff. Because advising fellows are close in age to your high school students and have most recently gone through the college application process themselves, they are able to be a different supportive voice, is what I tell counselors. There's just a different type of voice in your student's ear, and they even embody an example of, I did it, so you can do it too. And counselors have shared with me that their advising, the advising here at Matriculate complements their school counseling. Sorry, yeah, complements their school counseling well. Okay, here's a quick snapshot of what these 10 months working with their advising fellow looks like. Advising fellows have to follow Matriculate's curriculum. So this map that you see right here, we have a strong curriculum with 31 pieces, such as preparing for tests, building a balanced college list, essays, financial aid, scholarships, preparing for college life, etc. This map shows the timeline of milestones a high school junior is striving to meet during the college application process. Advisors support, they check in, they keep your high schooler accountable for meeting all of these. And of course, advising fellows, they tailor their session to whatever the high school fellow needs support in. So maybe they need less support on the college list. They need to spend more time on essays. That's all personalized based on what they talk about, what they decide. Communication is personalized as well. So this can look like weekly Zoom calls, periodic texts to check in, or emails, however often that your high schooler needs. Okay. Beyond the advising relationship, Matriculate has a few other supports in place. We have text reminders that go out to meet major deadlines, a text hotline for questions. There's a community Discord so that students can connect with peers across the country. We have monthly newsletters that go out full of resources and a checklist for the month, webinars, student guides, cheat sheets, including how to request for a teacher recommendation or how to get application fee waivers. And something exciting, students get Matriculate swag, get a t-shirt, something fun, something to look forward to. Here we have a list of our top attended colleges from the last class. Beyond this, the schools that our students attend are vast and various. So they're attending hundreds of different colleges and universities across the US, including public state schools to small liberal arts schools to Ivy League schools, everywhere in between. because at Matriculate, it's not just about finding a school and then getting accepted and then enrolling, right? We want to really make sure our students are attending college at a place that will support them academically, socially, financially, and to eventually graduate in 4 to 6 years. A quick shout out here on the bottom to 7 fantastic schools who have become our pathway partners. This just means that they have pledged to meet full financial need for at least 2 Matriculate high school fellows each year. And this list is growing. On our website, you can check out our other college partners who support our students in many different ways. Okay. Another inspiring highlight we want to share are some of the scholarships our students have earned. So while we help with financial aid from schools, we also support students to apply to private scholarships like these full ride options to smaller local scholarships. A fun fact, last year, 12% of Questbridge match scholarship recipients were Matriculate students. Now, I'm going to stop talking. It is my honor to introduce 4 incredible humans in the room. These are our panelists who are doing so much for college access and have unique perspectives on how an organization like Matriculate can support counselors and your students. We'll hear from Felix, a former high school fellow, who will talk more in depth about the advising he received, how it worked together with the counseling he was getting at school. We'll hear from Jasmine. She is not only a current advising fellow, she is also a head advising fellow. So she's doing leadership work on how she advises students, how she advises her high school students. We'll hear from Kimberly, a public school college counselor, on how she leverages Matriculate to navigate her own work and plug into her students. And finally, we'll hear from Julia, our Senior Director of Student Recruitment and Experience, on how community organizations have been collaborating with us. Okay. So I am proud to spotlight our first panelist, Felix. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi everyone, it's great to meet you all. My name is Felix Squaw, and I'm from Lawrence, Kansas. I currently attend Washington University in St. Louis, and I am majoring in biology and minoring in music. So, a little bit about myself. I am the youngest son and sibling in a low-income Chinese household. I'm also a first-generation U.S. college student. So, I came from an underfunded public high school and from a state that is currently defunding public education. So, there was a lot of lack of opportunities, both in extracurriculars and academics, that I experienced. And I always knew that I wanted to go to college, but I never really thought about going to a prestigious university since I didn't even consider myself as a competitive applicant. So the original plan for me was to take out a ton of loans and go to the local state university right across the street from my high school or go to a community college. However, this mindset changed completely when my sister, who is also an HSF alum, also a former advising fellow, my role model, and also went to WashU, received report from Matriculate and got a full ride from the college through the Questbridge National College Match Scholarship. I then realized it was possible for me to get into and attend a prestigious university, and so that gave me the driving force to do well in high school, where I became the valedictorian of my class, ranking 1 out of 347 students, and applied to Matriculate. And honestly, that was one of the best decisions I have made in my life. I was matched to an advising fellow who was extremely kind and passionate about ensuring that I had a successful college application journey, helping me get to where I am today at WashU. And because of his support, I'm an advising fellow myself, giving the same support and impact to high school seniors that I received just like my advising fellow did, and what other advising fellows like Jasmine are currently doing. I'm proud to say that one of my HSFs has gotten a full ride from Brown through the Questbridge National College Math Scholarship, and that 2 of my HSFs are finalists for the Gates Scholarship.
Wow, Felix, there are so many things to be proud of and everything that you shared. So, you know, round of applause from me here in New York.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
the work that you do. Yeah, so exciting. And I love that your sibling, your sister, was your role model. That is really sweet. let's go back to that time. So when you were a high school junior, you said you were matched to an advising fellow here at Matriculate. How did your advising fellow help you? Can you share maybe the most essential part of that advising relationship?
Of course. So my advising fellow really helped me by giving me the support and guidance I needed with the college application process. As a US first generation college student, I had no idea what I was doing or what resources were out there that could have given me a successful college application process. However, my advising fellow was a college sophomore, so he had a pretty recent experience with the college application process and was able to give me a ton of advice, such as what test scores I should submit and applying to scholarships, and what I could really do to have a successful college application journey. I was also able to really connect with him since we both grew up in a suburban area in the Midwest, and we also both were pursuing biology. So we had really similar experiences. This really allowed me to open up to him and just talk about how my day was and anything that I was currently struggling through. I think for me, there are two parts that I found to be really essential. One of the key things my advising fellow taught me was how to write an amazing college essay. He taught me how to share my story by focusing on how I was able to sell the best qualities of myself, such as persistence and empathy, within the limited word count. He also gave me the desire to continue to push myself, encouraging me to apply to as many scholarships and prestigious universities as I could, and I ended up becoming a Questbridge scholar and winning the Gates Scholarship thanks to him.
Yeah, I think a lot of students find the essays, especially to be particularly intimidating. Where do I start? What will I write about? And so I'm glad that that part was made easier for you because you had, this near peer mentor. My last question for you, Felix, is so you were getting counseling at school, of course, through your school counselor. How would you say Matriculate, the advising you were receiving at Matriculate, how did that work together or complement with the school counseling you were getting? And can you share what you think is different about having a near peer advisor?
Great question. So, my counselors and teachers were some of the most valuable and impactful people in helping me succeed in high school and the college application process by giving me a ton of moral support and a lot of valuable advice. My counselors specifically helped me maximize the very few amount of AP and advanced courses I could take that my school offered and ensured that it could fit into my schedule. One of my favorite stories about her is that one day I received an email from her, and this was about a week before the deadline for the Gates Scholarship. She encouraged me to apply, and basically she told me that she was in the email, she specifically said, I know it's super competitive and I know it's really hard to get, but I think you have a really strong chance and I think you should go for it because I think you can get it. So I decided to go for it. And when I found out that I got the scholarship, she immediately gasped and started clapping and dancing. And every time I think about this moment, I can't help but smile and really think about the huge impact that she had made on my life, because without her, I would have not applied to the scholarship. And although I had great relationships with her and the rest of my teachers, my school was underfunded and my counselor and teachers had a lot of students to work with. So they could really only provide moral support and general oversight of my essays and college and scholarship applications. Matriculate, however, provided me with a plethora of tools that gave me more support and encouragement to apply to prestigious universities and scholarships, such as the Gates and Questbridge Scholarship. It gave me a more of a one-to-one relationship that I couldn't get as much with my counselor, and showed me other opportunities that I wasn't aware of. And one of these opportunities was flying programs. My family couldn't afford for me to visit colleges across the country, but flying programs provided me with that opportunity by covering the cost of transportation and being able to stay on a university's campus for a couple of days, which gave me the idea of what I wanted in a college. And this helped me decide on choosing WashU as my number one choice, and that's how I ended up where I am here today.
Thanks for sharing, Felix. That is such a sweet story about your counselor. She was like, "You have a week left, but I think you can do it," and then you went for it. I'm glad that in the end you were able to really use all of the resources that you had, both in school and out of school, to get to where you are now. We are so lucky to have you as an advising fellow as well, Felix. So thank you. Next up, I would love to have everybody meet Jasmine. Jasmine, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you. Again, I am Jasmine. I'm a current junior at Emory University. I am also a first generation student from the suburbs of Atlanta. Just to briefly provide some background on my education, the schools in my area had really low graduation rates. In fact, I think they're still currently the lowest, they still have the lowest graduation rates in the county, unfortunately, and also limited college prep resources. So at the time, while I was in eighth grade and middle school, I decided to make the choice of participating in the school choice program and ended up attending a high-performing high school in my county. And although my high school in particular, Harrison and Kennesaw, love my school, it had really strong academics, but it really did lack resources for students of my background, in particular low-income background students. And especially as one of the few Hispanic students at school, I felt really out of place in the college application process. And at least to me at the time, this was really a bummer considering I had somehow be gotten to become salutatorian at that school accidentally. It was really silly to me how I still felt so out of place and had no idea what to do. And to help with this, like my counselor was amazing. She gave me tips on how to plan my senior year so I could solidify my spot. And I did. Solidify my spot, and although she was great, she saw over 100 students. Our class was over 650. And although she was really supportive, she had really limited time for that one-on-one guidance, especially when it came to scholarships like Questbridge, which although she encouraged me to apply, she wasn't as familiar with this scholarship because a lot of students at my school weren't financially eligible. It was a pretty well-off school, so a lot of like this scholarship wouldn't apply to a lot of our students. So she wasn't the most familiar with it. And that's why I ended up turning to Matriculate, where I was paired with an advising fellow from Bernard who helped me recognize not only my potential and in general just be able to push beyond what I thought was possible. She guided me through my essays, my interviews, and my overall college application process, giving me the confidence to apply to schools I would have never imagined I could attend. And thanks to her support, I now study psychology with a minor in film on the pre-med track at Emory.
Thank you, Jasmine. You say accidentally became a salutatorian. Girl, you worked hard for it, and we need to name that. So
Accidentally, because I was just trying to get money from scholarships. I wasn't trying to do like get up there,
yeah,
but here I was.
you made it. Um, so having been a high school fellow, once you got into college, you turned to becoming an advising fellow. That's so special. Can you shed some light on what it takes to become an advising fellow, and how are you equipped? How are you ready to advise high schoolers?
Yes, of course. So initially, I didn't know that Emory had a fellowship, like a matriculate fellowship on campus. And one day I was walking from class and I saw them tabling for recruitment. And I was like, hey, I know you guys. Y'all help me get in here. And so like I jumped at the opportunity to offer the support that I had been really grateful to receive during my application process. And of course, going into this, like I, as my other advising fellows can probably are also in the same boat. I wasn't the most familiar with exactly like, oh, what goes into like a good essay or like how do we navigate FAFSA, etc. So I was a little hesitant, but I was reassured like we would have a lot of extensive training, and that's exactly what happened. With the actual application process, there was a written application, an interview, I think we briefly mentioned earlier, orientation, qualification assessment, and a background check. Orientation was basically a crash course on what the advising cycle would look like and the do's and don'ts of like working with minors. Following orientation, we had to pass an assessment to prove that we were equipped to provide quality advising, following a rubric of skills and competencies. And training didn't stop there. We would also attend monthly all fellowship meetings or AFMs. These AFMs provide resources and teach advising fellows about the topics that we'll discuss that month with their students. So as Karen had mentioned earlier, financial aid, essays, scholarships, each month is a new topic. This month, as a head advising fellow, I have the privilege of leading these meetings. And this month, we did an activity to teach advising fellows on how to analyze award letters from different colleges. So we did an activity where we went through the US Buyer Award Letter Analyzer, comparing two different school award letters. We practiced filling out the spreadsheet and interpreting it to determine how much a student would pay based on their scholarships, financial aid, and loans, to then determine, oh, is like this big private school a good fit for me, or is the public university a better fit? And we kind of just navigated those different scenarios. And along with that, to supplement these resources, Matriculate also provides agendas for each topic on the curriculum as a structural support for a meeting with their high school fellows. So advising fellows always have like something to lean on in case so they don't have to always come up with an agenda themselves and miss anything through the cracks. Matriculate does a really good job at making sure this is your curriculum and here are the resources to support you to give this information to your high school fellow.
Yeah, thank you for going into the specifics, like shedding light on what um, the structure is for being an advising fellow and the training that you get. So, the last question, from your perspective, how does advising fellows like you complement, work together with school counseling?
Yes, so school counselors, as we kind of mentioned throughout, juggle a lot of students and they may have limited time for that extensive individualized support, or they might just not be super familiar with what that individual student needs in particular. However, they are really valuable resources for academic planning, finding local scholarships, and being, most importantly, a liaison between colleges and their student body. In contrast, as advising fellows, since we're only working with 3 to 4 students, we can build stronger interpersonal relationships and tailor our guidance to each student's unique strengths and goals. We help basically transform the resources that counselors provide and into actionable steps, such as organizing applications, refining essays, and offering personalized feedback that counselors may not always have the capacity to provide. My high school fellow Kiani, for example, was from Arizona. And as we began exploring scholarships, I highly encouraged her to look and inquire on her counselor's website or meet with her in person to inquire about local scholarships, as that was something that I found really helpful while I was applying to schools. Her counselor ended up giving her a pretty hefty document with multiple local and state scholarships. And on my end, there was a little bit of a learning curve because I wasn't the most familiar with Arizona state aid. But luckily, Matriculate has a state advising cheat sheet, which basically breaks down all the state programs for financial aid, big local state scholarships. And I became familiar with those, and especially the Arizona LEAP grant, which was really helpful. After exploring these opportunities individually, separately, we narrowed down which ones she was eligible for, and we came together, we drafted up a spreadsheet, organized the application requirements for each one of these scholarships, and then also included like deadlines to keep track of everything. Once we had like a big organizer planned out, we worked on her essays throughout that fall, helping her brainstorm, edit, and finalize these essays. And she's now on the honors program at Arizona State University on, I think, almost a full ride, if not a full ride.
Oh my gosh, amazing. I'm glad that she met you, Jasmine.
So I'm glad I met her.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you're saying for the high school students that you work with, again, like the counselor gives them the general guidance of what they should work on. And also they may have resources to share. And so then they will come to you with what their counselor has told them. And then you kind of almost continue the action step with them or hold them accountable, kind of hold their hand a little bit through those steps. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jasmine. If anybody has questions for Felix and Jasmine, our two students on the call, please drop them in the chat. They can get to it during the Q&A. Okay, I am over the moon to have Kimberly with us here today. Kimberly, I will leave it up to you to talk about the amazing things that you do and where you're from, all of that.
Okay. So I'm Kimberly Middleton, a college advisor at Millennium Brooklyn High School in Brooklyn, New York. So we're a public high school with a really diverse student body population. About 45% of our students identify as BIPOC, first generation, low income. And then we also have grade level cohorts of students on the autism spectrum who are like fully integrated into our co-taught classes. So a wide range of students. And I actually started here at Millennium as a special ed science teacher after 6 years in the classroom, loving that. I then actually ended up transitioning into my role as a college advisor. And so now I really focus on individual and group college and other pathway advising, which definitely includes helping students build their balanced list, craft their application materials, navigate the financial aid, and then help them set up the post-enrollment plans that they'll have so that their families and that they feel supported and informed throughout each step of that process.
Great. Um, so thinking about some of your biggest challenges as a counselor, and then some of you share that in the chat as well. How does Matriculate help address some of these challenges or support with some of these challenges for counselors?
Sure. First I'll say at this time of year, I know we're all probably as counselors still supporting our seniors and hoping for positive news in these next few weeks as they get decisions back from a lot more colleges, while simultaneously working with our juniors and conducting those group or individual meetings with them and sometimes even their families. And I know I'm constantly spread thin myself, trying to address so many different areas of student, family, and even like our school administration's concerns, while really wanting to focus my time and energy on the parts of the job that we all see as counselors, I'm sure, is most important and most rewarding, supporting students throughout their college process, and then, hoping that they're working on things outside of our limited time with each of them. I think both Felix and Jasmine kind of touched on how amazing their counselors were, but also that they had to, work with a lot of other students. And so it was actually around this time last year. Oh, are we doing a drill? Well, I am still at school, and so while I learned about Matriculate around this time last year through a webinar similar to this, and started incorporating it into my meetings with students, despite not really knowing exactly how it was going to go. And so I've found that Matriculate has really been an incredible, as you said, Karen, complement to, and I think enhancement of my work with my students. So to give you an idea of kind of how that looks practically, during my one-on-one meetings, I'll be looking at a student's transcript and their SAT scores to see if they qualify for Matriculate academically. And then throughout that conversation in that meeting, I'm learning more about what kind of support and how much support they might have outside of school with the whole process. I have the flyer here with me printed out. So I show them the Matriculate flyer because one, it's like visually, it draws them in. And then it really clearly includes all the benefits of applying, along with what they can expect when they're working with their advising fellow. And then given that millennium's population, our students are so economically diverse, sometimes I don't know necessarily if a student is eligible for the program based on income. So having the flyer is actually a great way for me to see, how much they know about their family's financial situation. And, if they don't know or they haven't really even talked about paying for college with their family, it's a great way to use that as kind of an entry point into that conversation, especially if parents are on the call. And then, looking at that flyer, even if a student doesn't qualify, it's another tool to talk again about financial aid, fee waivers, and things like that. I was surprised actually as how much just the flyer itself is a tool. And then once my students were matched with their advising fellows, they started receiving those email reminders, those text reminders about the overall application timeline and deadlines that might be approaching. They were hopping on those Zooms to get advice about what to do over the summer and how to get ahead on the application process. And then those nudges in the fall to like complete your financial aid, like check your applicant portals, all those things. Just so much valuable information that I think was incredibly useful to them. And it didn't feel overwhelming, which it sometimes can because there's so much to do. And so I really love that aspect of Matriculate. And then, my students really had that individualized near peer support. At the same time, they were learning how to exercise their own self accountability. And so, because the students who qualify for Matriculate are high achieving, they often already have some of that in place and instilled within themselves. And then that frees up my time to work with students who might be struggling a little bit more academically and need much more intensive guidance in general, and specifically for me to be able to have them complete each step of the process. So Matriculate is truly like an additive component to my capacity, and it gives me time back to give access to high quality information and support to more of my students.
Thank you. I feel like in your response, you're touching on challenges with time, challenges with capacity, challenges with equity. Um, and, even using Matriculate as a tool to like better understand your students' financial and like family backgrounds. I love that. I love that. Um, my last question for you, Kimberly. So you just shared how Matriculate can support you as a counselor. Can you share how Matriculate has benefited some of your students? So maybe an anecdote, or a student that comes to mind of yours who has worked with Matriculate that you can speak on.
Absolutely. I've had so many students. I have heard about 10 or more um, from the class of 2025, and they've all talked in different capacities about how valuable their Matriculate advising fellows have been. One who comes to mind is Miriam. So, one of our current seniors. She started the process last spring. So I referred her because she's first gen, low income, high achieving. And she was matched within like a week or two with her advising fellow, Nicole. And so she knew for a fact that she wanted to, and kind of her family was kind of telling her that she needed to stay in New York City. So she searched and looked at some CUNYs, of course. There were some private colleges that had campuses in Brooklyn, and then there was NYU. And so NYU is her dream school. And of course, we know that it's also a reach for a lot of students. And so she worked with me to make sure that she felt really great about the major components of her Common App, and all of that was ready to go. We worked on as a group with all of our 11th graders in the spring. We worked with them on their essays. So she had started that. And honestly, by the time she got to the fall, it was fine. But it wasn't great. And so the fall being such a jam-packed time for us as counselors, working with so many students, writing our letters of recommendation and doing all those other logistical things, it meant that beyond our 45-minute kind of guaranteed meeting, when we went through all those components of her Common App, I couldn't really spend that much time working with her on the nuances of her essay and the supplemental writing for NYU, even though that's something that she, of course, really needed. And so she was set on applying ED. She was stressing herself out about turning it in by the deadline, even though her writing needed some work. And
Mm.
so, right, literally, I will never forget this. Right, as I was in the process of uploading her documents to Naviance, she came into my office and she's like, you know what? I actually talked with Nicole, her advising fellow, and we realized that it might make a lot of sense, even though I was kind of nervous about it. And even though, you told me like I could, but I wasn't sure, like maybe it makes sense for me to apply ED too. And so I'll have more time to work in my writing. You'll hopefully have some more time, nudge, nudge, to give me support and help me give me some feedback with that. And I think, that was something she actually said it with such resolve and assuredness that I don't necessarily think that she would have had without having that near peer advising fellow as a sounding board and as someone who was saying, yes, like you should do this. This will give you the best chance. And so of course, I'm like, I agree. She did have more time to work on her essay. I had more time to give her feedback. And I also really liked what Nicole kind of did. And I think that's probably embedded in the curriculum, as Jasmine was saying, this idea of um, me giving her that feedback. She would then meet with Nicole on Zoom. They would look at it together, work on her essay and anything else as a part of the application together. We kind of did that back and forth a few times. And it was clear to me that Nicole was taking her time working with Miriam, and that she encouraged Miriam at the end of the day to always come back to me. So I was kind of, yes, I know you well. She knows you as well. But I think as the expert in some aspects of this, it's always good to know that it's not like the fellows, advising fellows are stepping on our toes in any way. It's that complement and enhancement of our work. And so I'm happy to report that she applied ED2, got in, she's super excited, and now we're just focusing on everything that she needs to do after enrollment.
Yeah. Now she, is high flying. Yeah,
Exactly.
and you are as well.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm so happy for Miriam. She's going to where
yeah.
she wants to go. I love that. Thank you so much, Kimberly. If anyone has questions on the counselor end of things, I think Kimberly did a great job explaining how this can look like in the day-to-day, in the week-to-week, the month-to-month, the practical application. Please feel free to share it in the chat. Okay. And then I will now introduce our last and certainly not the least panelist, Julia, who again is our Senior Director of Student Recruitment and Experience. Julia, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. First, let me say thank you for all the great questions. If you haven't looked at the Q&A, I encourage you to go and check out what people are asking. There's some just really great questions and a lot about the eligibility and just details about the application process. And we're certainly happy to follow up with you a little bit more about that so you have it in your hands. Karen will also reference a part of our website where a lot of this exists. And so we will defer to that. Always on, always plugging things. So before I do my intro, I just had to do that. I'm Julia. I'm the Senior Director of Student Recruitment and Experience at Matriculate. Believe it or not, this is my 16th year in College Access. I've been doing this since I graduated from college in a number of different wonderful organizations. I started my career at College Possible in the Twin Cities for about 5 years, and then I transitioned to opening and founding their site in Philadelphia. After that, I transitioned and moved to New York and worked as the high school program director for Breakthrough New York, which is a 10-year college access and success program. And 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago, I joined the team at Matriculate, and I was the 6th member of our team, and now we were almost 40 team members strong. So it's really exciting to be in a position right now where I get to hear from Jasmine, Felix, and Kim about all of the ways that we've been able to support students and just like collaborate. And that's a lot of what I'll be talking about today.
Thanks, Julia.
Yeah.
So question for you. How does Matriculate work with other programs, and what are the benefits of these types of collaborations?
Yeah, to begin, let me say, I mean, I just said this a little bit, but we really love working and collaborating with other programs. My philosophy always, as you know, in College Access, there's a lot of things going on. It's to work smarter, not harder, and to really find ways that we can collaborate with other programs. I mean, you all, we see as are the experts in your domain, and we really love the opportunity to learn and work together to improve outcomes for students. So in the simplest terms, we work with other programs to provide college advising to students that would benefit from the extra support that has been shared a little bit more about today. And this typically happens in 2 ways, both of which can be either formal agreements where we sign MOUs, and that usually has to do with whether or not we want to share data back and forth. But majority of our partnerships are pretty informal because we just want to make it easier for students to access our program and to collaborate with others. So for example, for programs that either don't have enough spots for their applicants, like Thrive Scholars or LIDA, there are these really incredible programs that have thousands of applicants but can only provide spots for about 100 or a couple hundred students. They will then share the application with the students they weren't able to accept, and they go through the application process with us. And then there's also programs that don't provide college advising but do very similar work to us. So if you are familiar with National Ed Equity Program, they do sort of dual enrollment courses for students from low-income backgrounds. And we work with them to advertise our program to students who might be interested and need additional support. So we get the word out to their thousands of students as well. Yeah, I mean, like I said, these can either be formal or informal. But we just welcome any opportunity to sort of advertise our program to students. We also have pretty basic marketing partnerships. We work with programs like SCORE and School Links that have incredible platforms that go direct to educator and student and guide them along their application process, but don't provide an advising portion, and they just do simple advertising and marketing to their students as well.
Thanks, Julia. I like how you're naming that in this college access space, there's no competition, right? We're all, it's not like there's limited pieces of the pie and we're fighting over it. We're fighting to get students. We're really working together here. That's our philosophy.
Yeah, and really trying to get as many students to have access to a program like this as possible. You know, our dream is to be able to provide this to any student that doesn't otherwise have a program in their community. And so that's really why 10 years ago we decided to be virtual, is because we wanted there to be no barrier to a program who's eligible, or to a student who is eligible for our program.
Mm-hmm. I know we have many community organizations in the room with us now. If a CBO is interested in collaboration and chatting, what are their next steps?
Yeah. I mean, even if you just have one student, I would say reach out to me. I love talking about this, even if you have no idea like what this could look like, or you're just like intrigued and want to learn a little bit more, we would love to chat. So I think my email will be on the final slide, but it's just my first initial, J Perkins at matriculate.org. Please reach out to me. I'd love to meet. And also, I just wanted to plug, we have our advising fellow application open for this current class as well. And so another portion of my role is trying to think of ways that we can also connect with programs that have incredible alumni that would like to serve as an advising fellow to 3 students through this process. So Felix and Jasmine are incredible examples of Matriculate students who have been advising fellows. They don't have to be Matriculate students to be advising fellows. We would love them to just, have a passion for supporting students through the application process.
Great. Thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
Now we have, about 5 minutes for Q&A. I have gotten some questions, privately messaged to me. But before I ask those, Julia, are there any questions in the chat or the Q&A box that you wanted to get to? And also, as this Q&A is going on, you can feel free to type more for everybody else.
I mean, one that I'll just say is there's no fee associated with partnership, with becoming an advising fellow, becoming a high school fellow. Everything is accessible and free.
I have 2 to 3 questions here. The first question, I think, Julia, you would be best fit to answer this. How is Matriculate funded?
Sorry, I'm answering questions and trying to mute.
Oh, okay.
We are funded like any nonprofit through major grants and giving and individual giving. One of our largest and sustained supporters is actually Bloomberg Philanthropies. They've been a partner of ours since we were founded. So we've been really grateful for that. But otherwise, yeah, again, like any nonprofit, grants and individual and large donors.
It's hard for you to be in 2 places at once, basically on camera and in the chat, Julia. While you do that, I have a question that maybe Jasmine and Felix can jump in on. How do advising fellows hold students accountable to deadlines? This is a pretty general, broad question. Feel free to answer based on what you do yourself for your high school students.
I can go on and hop onto this since I also have to guide my advising fellows on how to navigate these conversations. So the first thing we usually do is we kind of try to get them while we're meeting live. That's typically the easiest way to like really hold them accountable. For example, like let's say the meeting prior, we decided we were going to come with this current meeting with a list of a draft for your college list, and say you didn't get to complete it in time for our next meeting. So during this meeting, we'd be like, hey, like, have you completed your list? HSS would be like, no, I haven't, unfortunately. And we kind of guide our advising fellows to take that time to work with them, because of course, like, we can't always determine like, oh, the HSS probably has a bunch of other extracurriculars as well and other assignments I have to do. So we make sure to like not make them feel bad for not completing these deadlines. But something that we do encourage our advising fellows to do is say, okay, well, I'm glad that we're able to work on this today. We do try to get some background on why they weren't able to finish their assignment per se. But we also encourage them to like let them know but it'd be really helpful if we could at least get some updates every once in a while. So we have them set updates for themselves just to keep track of where they're at. Text messages between the advising fellow and their high school student to make sure that they're staying in touch and keeping them each other updated on different task completion, and also just like remind the high school fellow that at the end of the day, like if they're not keeping up with their deadlines, they're going to have so much more work to do and squeeze in a short amount of time, and that usually is kind of what gets them going, because you're already super busy now. If you're holding everything to the last bit, it'll be so much worse, and we can only help you out so much at that point. So I think always like reminding them that it's going to be a much easier task to do at the end of the day, and they'll be so much more relieved, and having completed everything is really helpful.
Thank you, Jasmine. Last question. So Matriculate supports students from their spring of their junior year now until they graduate high school. What does support look like after a high school student has enrolled in the school of their choice? So I'm going to pass this question to Kim.
Yeah, one student in particular comes to mind, Angel, who has already been enrolled. He did the Questbridge process, didn't become a finalist, and then decided, along with his Matriculate advising fellow, to make the choice to ED to Lafayette. So again, worked with him. He was super excited when he got in. And so now actually what they're working on, one of the conversations I had with him and then eventually with his mom was all about, even though it's actually not as far away as some other schools and technically a 7-minute drive from his uncle's house, mom was really concerned about him being far away from New York City, which totally makes sense. This is the first time he's leaving home. And so what I was able to do is kind of say, you know what, I know that there are going to be affinity groups on campus and people who he can go to in student life and things like that. So finding out who those people were from our rep at Lafayette and then passing that information on to him, doing a little bit of an e-introduction, but then his advising fellow really worked with him on seeing how exactly he could connect with those affinity groups, what exactly he wanted to have the person who was going to be in student life kind of helping him with, trying to see if maybe there's a way for mom to talk to that person too. So I think it's really been useful and exciting for him to work with, again, someone who's a near peer who actually, I believe, has actually talked to mom too and has had that kind of conversation because it sounds like she also was someone who was first gen, low income from a city, and her family had similar concerns. And so, yeah, there's a lot that definitely happens even after a student has been accepted to colleges and then enrolled.
Thanks, Kim, for sharing that story on Angel. Okay, so we are going to wrap up. Here are some ways that you can get a head start, get involved, share with your students. If you visit our website, matriculate.org, I have up here in the top left, you go under the high school students tab, the last tab here, share matriculate with your community. It will bring you to this page. You'll see here a list of 8 things you can do, from sharing the application to nominating students to having the poster printed out at your desk or hung up in the office. As a counselor yourself, you can sign up for our monthly newsletters. In there, we're just sharing the webinars that are happening every month for you and your students and for families as well. You can request a short info session. I zoom in, I talk to your students about Matriculate, walk through the application for 20 minutes. Very simple. You can schedule a chat with us. You can share the student mailing list to your students. And then here we have an outreach toolkit with like email templates and blurbs and social media. So again, these slides will be emailed out to you, but you can find everything on our website. Oh, okay. And that's it. Thank you everybody for your precious time. You can find my email, Julia's email. If you would like to speak to any of the panelists here, you can just email me. I'll connect you. This QR code, you can schedule a chat with me. And again, like Julia said, if you have university students in your network, we are recruiting for them as well. I'll pass it back to you, Jonathan. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Kim, Jasmine, Felix. What an inspiring session. This was something that I feel like we all needed was to hear such inspiring stories. Thank you for showcasing the great work that you do and how Matriculate can be part of that village that supports our students. Thank you all for being here today. We so appreciate having you as part of the College Greenlight community. Please reach out to us. You can reach out to me at japril@eab.com with any questions. If you've got ideas about content or other sessions, please reach out to collegegreenlight@eab.com. Thank you so much for being part of our community. We'll see you soon. Thank you.